I'm going to be proposing some new community policing initiatives that will significantly expand funding and training for local law enforcement, including up to 50,000 additional body-worn cameras for law enforcement agencies.
The president would like a lot of things to happen in the wake of Ferguson. What some people are still going to is what happened at the very beginning, when the officer shot an unarmed man and there was still no identification of the officer for some time. It has not only happened in Ferguson, but it has happened in other cities and municipalities as well. And it is something that a community wants to talk about and something that people believe needs to change. Let's welcome into MidPoint. She is an attorney with the firm McGillivray Westerberg Bender, also vice president of the Wisconsin Freedom of Information Council, a nonprofit group dedicated to open government. Christa Westerberg joins us today. Christa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Christa, we get down to this whole issue about what you had written in the Wisconsin State Journal on your right to know, where you said police should promptly name officers in shootings. Let's back up a second. Why then do police not name them? And you also bring up a very good point, because in Wisconsin, there's been a case that went on for some time and some months before an officer was named in a fatal shooting. What is the police excuse for why they do this?
The police in that case in Milwaukee said that the reason they didn't name the shooter is because they were waiting for a charging decision to be made by the district attorney, and also that it was consistent with past practice. They did eventually release the name prior to a charging decision being made, but still more than 4 months after the shooting occurred. And review shows that past practice has been all over the map with the Milwaukee Police Department. If an officer has been involved in a shooting, but the police could be seen to have acted heroically in that situation, then they do name the officer promptly. So one thing we're really looking for is consistency and a consistent policy on that issue.
Well, I want to bring up exactly what happened. This was in 2014. This was this year. A police officer shot a man 14 times, killed him. The guy was unarmed, had a history of paranoia and schizophrenia, according to the family here and according to your article. Yet Milwaukee police did not confirm the identity of the officer who shot him for more than 4 months. Let me play devil's advocate here. Aren't the police trying to tamp down what could happen, what could be a movement against the officer? Because certainly there were those in Ferguson who wanted to know the officer's name, and certainly there are those who would want to take action against the officer and or his or her family. Isn't it better to protect them until the law goes through and make sure that there is a problem, if indeed there is one?
Certainly. I know that police officers, and we recognize that police officers have an extremely difficult job, and that Ferguson especially was a very difficult situation. We are not sure that that same risk was presented in the Milwaukee case. Obviously, if there is a death threat or something that an officer is facing, there's a great argument to, make sure that that officer can do what it takes to be safe. But on the other hand, there are a lot of arguments for transparency, even in that situation. One important one being that it increases the faith in the police officer. It shows in the department, it shows that they have nothing to hide, and it helps ward off some distrust that happens when there isn't more transparency.
But shouldn't that all come out in an investigation later? And I guess, and please don't mind if I play the devil's advocate on this a couple of times here, because what you're saying is the public has an obvious interest. Granted, but they don't have a legal interest at the beginning as well. You're also talking about here that it alerts the public earlier if other complaints and concerns have arisen about the officer. But shouldn't that all come out in an investigation? And why then should the general public know? And I'm not trying to be against the public here and their right to know, but it seems as if we're giving the public information that needs to come out in an investigation first before it then becomes a part of social media justice, if you will.
Yes. Understood. The information is going to come out. Problem with waiting for it to complete is that sometimes those investigations can stretch on for weeks and months. And in the Dontre Hamilton case in Milwaukee, the DA is still looking at that. So that would have been even longer to wait if the department had waited for the conclusion of that investigation. In the meantime, other types of incidents like this are reported. We know who the victim is. We know who the shooter is in other situations. And so This helps maintain consistency with those situations and also ensures correct information. You don't have a lot of speculation in the community and social media justice going the wrong way. In Ferguson, we saw hackers attack the the Ferguson Police Department to try to find the name that way. And certainly, we shouldn't be acting in a way to appease, hackers. But it does point out the importance of, the correct information that can be disseminated by the department rather than by those commenting online, for example.
Well, fair to say you're going to find a tremendous amount of rumor no matter what you do, and certainly that happened in Ferguson. No matter what, even if you have information that comes out right away in a number of cases, we've still seen riots, we've still seen social discourse, we've still seen people that are angry and inciting riots in many places. So what's the answer here? The cops want to protect their own, who may indeed have been acting within the law, many times does not, and they also want to protect the community sometimes from themselves or those who come out and want to create an incident like what happened in Ferguson. Where's the midline here?
Well, I think that's a great question. And, we should have some kind of consistency and some kind of policy and figure out, what are the criteria that warrant withholding an officer's name in these situations that are a matter of great public interest. Do we do that only when there's a concern for the officer's safety, or when there's concern about compromising some sort of investigation into what happened? Those are two criteria I think of, and maybe law enforcement and policymakers can work on the contours of when it's appropriate to withhold in those situations. But I think otherwise, it is appropriate for all the reasons we've discussed to have confidence in the law enforcement and to increase transparency, ensure correct information. In those rare situations where officers have had a troubled history, the public can be informed of that earlier. So I think, transparency should be the rule, except for, when there are those concerns.
There you go. We still have to find that midpoint somewhere, and we're still not quite there yet as a society. We need to, unfortunately, agree on that. Christa Westerberg, fascinating topic. We have to find out what happens from here on out. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. When we come back, America has a new ally, sort of, in the fight against ISIS. And at 51 minutes after the hour, why the Ferguson incident may turn out to be a positive in American history. That's my commentary. It's coming up later, right here, where we question everything.